Once again, it is a huge warm welcome back to our World Cup coverage. Bookmakers.com teaming up with Cobra Bet to bring you all the biggest news, views, and opinions throughout the World Cup 2022. Pleased to say, my ever-present sidekick, Brad Friedel, is once again on the line. Brad, kick off and give me, please, if you will, a rating out of 10 for the World Cup. Politics aside, football only, marks out of 10 for the World Cup.
Football only.
Football only. Purist.
Football.
11 against 11. What you've witnessed across the white line. Marks out of 10.
8.5 to 9. It's been really good because we've had quite a few upsets in the group stages. I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10 because there are quite a few players missing, and I think that's still the time of year. A lot of it's attributed to the time of year that it is, but some fascinating games, some fascinating matchups, some fascinating results. I didn't see Australia getting through, and then I didn't see them even giving Argentina a game, and they did. So it from that standpoint, it's been remarkable to watch. Very entertaining.
Is it fair to say, Brad, that it's been the tournament of the emerging nations because Australia qualifying, Saudi Arabia somehow miraculously beating Argentina, Japan getting through a group of Spain and Germany? You can go further, South Korea, for example. The tournament of the emerging nations?
Well, I think each year football gets a little bit smaller. I think a lot of the big leagues, the top 5 leagues, they're consistently and continuously trying to figure out where they can get better bargains of the same quality across the globe. And the more money that gets invested in these countries, the better their infrastructure is on home soil, and the better their players are getting at a younger age. So I thought Japan and South Korea would both come through their groups. It would be tough, but there's a lot of good footballers all over the globe now. So I think in 2026 again, you talk about emerging nations. I think we're going to see more, even in 2026, and when we get to 2030, as each year, 2 years, 4-year segments go by, people are getting stronger in different areas of the world.
And as the emerging nations go up, maybe there's a bit of an equalizing or neutralizing effect, for want of a better phrase, Brad, because if it's been a tournament of emerging nations, it's also been a tournament of spectacular failure for some very big names, because we already talked about the disappointment for an aging Wales. We talked about Belgium not living up to their hype. But is it fair to say you can add to that list a dismal Denmark and a completely out of sorts, for the second tournament running, Germany?
Yeah, I would say I would put more onus on Germany having a poor World Cup rather than Denmark. Denmark is a much smaller nation. However, they do have a very good team, and they did underperform. I think with Denmark, you can put it down to underperforming in their final third. I don't think they played particularly poorly in their matches in build-up play, recovery, defending, things of that nature. I just think in the attacking third. A nation like Germany, who has arguably, depending on what leagues you like, arguably the best league or one of the best leagues in the world, you would expect them, no matter what tournament they enter into, to get out of the group stages. And you really expect them to be quarterfinalists and beyond. And I would imagine anybody who coaches Germany that doesn't make it there is under a huge amount of pressure and criticism when they don't get there. Now, they faced some elements that historically the Germans aren't very good at, like playing in immense heat and humidity. I remember in 1994. They were beating South Korea 3-0 at halftime and could barely move in the second half, and they ended up winning 3-2. But South Korea could have scored 5 goals in the second half. So there are some elements to it, and the Japanese goalkeeper on this World Cup had a remarkable second half, a string of fine saves. So things were against them, but again, you would think that they would get through. They can go toe to toe with Spain, but then they struggled with the other sides in the group. So I would put them up there with Belgium as the biggest surprises of the tournament in not doing so well.
Brad, we've dealt, I think, quite nicely with the emerging nations and with the disappointments. Tell me about, and I'm not talking now about VAR, I'm talking about, strictly speaking, the refereeing behaviour on the pitch, because to the uninitiated like me, I'm thinking the referees have been, broadly speaking, very good. Not too many bookings, not too fussy, not too much interruption. They've let some quite meaty, robust challenges get in there. As somebody who's played the game for a long time at the very highest level and been to 3 World Cups, what have you made of the referees?
I think they've been very, very good. I think the sign of a good referee is when you don't notice them. Yeah. That's the best sign of a referee. You know what? One of each World Cup, each tournament, each Euros, and to be fair, each Premier League season, there's always a new nuance with the referees. You know, there's a new initiative. You know, one of the ones that I've really enjoyed this World Cup, and I hope it goes into club football, is they're not putting up with any of the time wasting and the fouls. Like, it happens. Not going to stop certain nations from doing it, but then you'll see 12 minutes of extra time at the end of the game, rightly so. You know, you watch a Premier League game, and I played in many where you'd have 6 substitutions, 3 injuries, 3 goals, and someone would put up 3 minutes of added time. And take onto that all the rolling around on the field to waste time. And I was a goalkeeper. I used to waste time for fun. But the referees never added it on. And I think that's brilliant, because no matter how, if they put 6 minutes of added time up and you roll around for 3, it's going to be 3 more. And I think that's been a breath of fresh air. And if you notice, each game, less and less of that is occurring.
It works. And of course, it's value for money as well for the audience. If you've paid a fortune for a ticket, you want to see that maximum effect. You just talked about goalkeepers. I'm sure they don't all waste time, particularly the star goalkeepers. Who has stood out for you? Because I think of goalkeeping moments, good and bad, in the World Cup so far. I think of Wayne Hennessy's red card. I think of Thibaut Courtois with his penalty save. But then I think of, and you and I touched on this last week, the giant Dutchman with his great backstory, Noppert, and particularly Szczesny with his penalty save, and then the frustration of having to actually see the game not quite go as he was hoping for, and on and so forth. Talk to me, about who has been if you will, maybe the 1 or 2 names that to you have really stood out as an elite goalkeeper. And also, secondly, Brad, about when you're at that level with the hype, the pressure, the expectation, how do you go about facing a penalty kick?
Let's go to the second question first, because that's an easier one. The pressure of facing a penalty kick. It didn't matter if it was a World Cup or it didn't matter if it was in training. It's the one time where I felt zero pressure as a goalkeeper, probably the only time, because it's one of the few times, other than maybe a square pass across the 6-yard box into an open net, but it's one of the few times where you're not blamed for the goal. So, you know, if you dive the other way, people just say generally say the striker sent him the wrong way. They very rarely focus on the goalkeeper during a penalty kick. So I always found it very calming. I would say, to try to detect little nuances and what would take place. I remember playing in a game of Sunderland at home when I was I saw 4 or 5 Sunderland players, maybe even 6, all line up to my left-hand side on the 18-yard box. So I'm thinking, and I'd never taken a shot from the penalty from who was taking it. I said, he must be going to my left. Like they're all thinking the rebound's going there, because
yes.
he wouldn't.
Yeah,
so
of course.
I went that way, and sure enough, I saved it. So you detect little things, but I always found it quite calming. My favorite goalkeepers, Alisson, Ederson, love those guys, and like going into Atletico Madrid with Oblak and those guys. But my favorite goalkeeper so far of this entire tournament has been Noper from Holland. He has been I just think with the backstory and never playing an international game, that's remarkable in itself. But how calm does he look in the games? He's big. He made, so people are talking the first save, Christian Pulisic, that Pulisic should have scored. Okay, yeah, maybe. But if you think about it, Pulisic would have seen the ball. It was more deflected to him in his path, and then he sees, and there's a 6'8" goalkeeper coming at him. I mean, I look at that as a save, not as much a miss. He came out, cut down the angle, and used his big frame, and he saved it with his leg. But in the game, Greg Berhalter put a high pressing system out, which he hasn't done, and he's just calmly passing the ball to his team. And then he's making big saves at big moments. I think he has been the most intriguing one for me to watch of the entire tournament so far.
And he's not just big. I mean, he's Jack and the Beanstalk big. I mean, this guy must have, like Popeye has his can of spinach in the cartoon. This fella is a giant. He's 6'8", for heaven's sake. Even by goalkeeping standards, that's big, isn't it?
Really big. And there's almost a point where you think when you're going into coaching and you're looking at the young players coming through, there's a point where you think some goalkeepers could be too small and some goalkeepers could actually be too big, because getting the shots down by your tight into you, down by your feet, that can be hard. Not for this guy. He's agile. He's nimble. When he plays, he doesn't look 6'8" because he looks like he's so agile, and he's been making big saves in every game. But the most impressive thing for me is just his calmness. Because normally, so if you saw Matt Turner in the beginning of the Holland game, he got the ball. It's the first time he's played the knockout game, and he was getting it. He's looking, where do I throw it? And then he calmed down, of course, but it's the first couple of minutes with Noper. First second, he makes a save, and then he gets the ball the next time, he calmly passes it out. It's like he has been there, like this is his 4th World Cup.
Well, certainly we've touched upon another goalkeeper with quite a fizzy demeanour in Jordan Pickford. But if you will allow me, Brad, to segue from Noppert to your nation, the USA. And of course, he was a big part of the ingredients why they've now packed their bags and gone home. Would it be fair to summarise that the USA, it was probably, broadly speaking, the objective and the mission would have been to qualify from Group B. They did that, and not only that, but against a team upon whom, if you were having a bet, for example, with Cobra Bet on the match, Netherlands against the USA last 16, you would anticipate the Netherlands would be a relatively strong favourite, and that actually a brave effort in defeat sends them home with a lot of credit, the USA.
Yeah, I think the mission was to get out of the group, and they got out of the group. You were going to be coming up, no matter who you were playing in the second game was going to be difficult, because it was going to be either Senegal, who was full of athleticism, or England, or not England, Netherlands, as it turned out. And I thought on the day, Louis van Gaal got his tactics superbly right. I think Greg was trying to disrupt their flow of passing. That's why he played Jesus Ferreira, because he'll run all day long. And the Dutch ended up being too good on the ball, and Frankie de Jong was too good on the ball. But the best thing that they did against us was they man-marked our 3 best players in the middle of midfield, Musa, McKinney, and Adams. They put Dumfries and Timber physical against Pulisic, and they let our center backs have the ball. So even though we had 58% of the ball, most of the passes were back and forth between our center backs.
Brad, I'm not sure if you noticed, because you're a long way away. We're doing this via Zoom, but it would appear that Louis van Gaal got his tactics better than I got my ability to put up my Christmas lights, which midway through your last answer just fell down behind me. So my apologies for that. Stick again on a segue from Andries Noppert, because of course in the last 8, the quarter-final, perhaps he could be the catalyst for sending out your anti-post selection Argentina, who started slow, but boy are they gaining a head of steam. Holland against Argentina, in a relatively modest 1 or 2 sentences, who qualifies and why?
Argentina qualify only because of the sheer brilliance of one or two players. I think Argentina also have a very good goalkeeper in Martinez. I think Holland are going to get chances to score, but in this one, again, I think Louis van Gaal will drop off just a little bit and possibly give Argentina that bit of possession they need. I just see Lionel Messi just being able to break that open a little bit. It'll be a great game. Don't give it. And Holland's going to have chances to score, no doubt. And it's not going to be a runaway. It'll be close, really close. But I just think Argentina shades it.
Argentina shades it. Okay, if that one's close, I suspect that if you sent a lump of coal into the centre circle prior to the England-France game, after 90 minutes, you might find a diamond, because this could be desperately tight. First of all, again, the same question that pertains to Argentina-Holland. In one or two sentences, England or France, in your mind's eye, Brad Friedel, who qualifies?
I'm gonna go England, and again an against the odds choice. I think France is going to be very good in this game. England will focus on shutting down Mbappe, but they'll know Olivier Giroud very well. And I think they'll focus on Griezmann and Mbappe. And I think they have the physicality. I think Kyle Walker on that side can run with Mbappe. And that's where I'm thinking. I think he has the physical capabilities of shutting him down. Kyle's the fastest player I've ever played with in my life. And the attacking that England can impose on France, because France has conceded quite a few chances. I mean, they conceded quite a few in the first half against Poland. And I see England again, really close, really tight, but I see the England edge in this one.
But then, of course, in there, and I speak as a skeptical Englishman, so I am playing devil's advocate deliberately, but then in their round of 16 game, yeah, I hear you. England did eventually come through a comfortable 3-0 margin against Senegal, but they too conceded chances. And is there not a threat, Brad, that somewhere out in Qatar, whatever time of day it is there right now, there's a 23-year-old Parisian called Kylian Mbappe who is physically salivating at the thought of running hard and direct at John Stones and Harry Maguire? That could spell absolute pandemonium.
But I think he predominantly is going to drift over onto Walker's side. And I think Walker and Stones will be able to deal with him. He's going to have his chances. Don't get me wrong, but he won't have them every time he touches the ball. And if he gets an open space, Kyle Walker will be able to catch up to him, which is different than what Kylian Mbappe will come up against a lot of times in any match that he plays, because he's so very quick. I think it's going to be a fascinating game. And yes, England gave up a couple of chances. I thought Pickford made a very good save with his left arm in the first half in the Senegal game. But that's a different type of game. I think England were the favorites going into that game. I think they were going forward. I think they were going to concede one or two on the counterattack due to the athleticism of Senegal. Of course, within the England-France game, there's no favorite. It should be deadlock even. And they're both going to be playing their game. And I think England will respect France, and they will try to shut down Griezmann on the ball, and they'll try to shut down Mbappe as much as they can. But then I'm not so sure France's defense can deal with England's attack as well as England's defense will be able to deal with France's attack. So it'll be a fascinating encounter, and I think the makings of a real exciting one. Even 0-0, 1-1. I don't think it's going to be a bore 0-0 or 1-1.
Do you think the game will be decided in normal time, or could it go to distance? Is this one that could be in the additional 30? Might it even go to the dreaded spot kicks?
Yeah, I think it could go to the extra 30, even to the dreaded spot kicks. If it does go to the spot kicks, history isn't favoring England. But this will be no matter what happens in the game and who scores first, and it's just going to be a fascinating game. It should be a final, and we're getting it in the quarterfinals.
Well, it's exciting just actually looking ahead to it and building up to it and imagining how it could be. Brad, you already told us you think that England might edge it just about. Would you anticipate that the coach will make any change to his starting 11 from the one that took the field against Senegal? I mean, he went for a nice balance. He went for Henderson. He went for Rice as the holding player. He went for Bellingham. Further forward, obviously, Harry Kane is not only ever present, but now he's unblocked. He has a goal. He has confidence. He has supply. He has Saka. He has Foden. Any changes?
I wouldn't have thought so. I think Walker in this game, no matter what, is a must, because I do think you need to have his strength and pace against Mbappe. So even if he's tired, because I know he was coming through some fitness issues, I think you've got to play him. I love my favorite attacking player other than Harry Kane is Foden. I think he's just a super footballer. So if, for me, he stays.
Foden was exceptional from the first kick last night. I think it's fair to say.
He was the one player that I didn't want to play against the US, and he didn't, and I was thankful for that. I just think he's a wonderful footballer. And then as I would probably play unchanged, because Saka, he's going to be able to cause this French team a lot of issues. The worry that I would have maybe for England is on the left-hand side with Shaw and Maguire, is just dealing with the pace. And this isn't a slight on Shaw and Maguire at all. It's just hard to play against just out and out pace. So, Dembele is on that side, and then if they bring him off or bring somebody else, then it's Coman, who you're dealing with later in the game, who's equally as quick and skillful. And, so, and Shaw and Maguire are not slow individuals. It's just the pace of Dembele is rapid, quick. So I'd be looking over on that side of the pitch, maybe having to help out from time to time. But I think there's going to be some fascinating matchups all over the pitch.
Finally, I know you love Foden. You've said that pretty much every show, and the consistency is there with that opinion. There's one other player, Brad, that I'd love to get your thoughts on, because his presence, his maturity, his ability, his distribution, his engine, and yet he's barely out of short trousers. That's the 19-year-old who looks as if he's a seasoned professional who's been doing it for a decade. He's an astonishing talent, Jude Bellingham.
He is an astonishing talent, and he looks the part straight away when you look at him. He's big, he's strong, powerful, young, raw, innocent to a point in how he plays. Because he overruns and overcommits at times, not in a bad way. Just giving him, because he has the physicality to do it. But he has been superb, and he's one of these players in the World Cup. I mean, people in England obviously know how good he is. People around the world are, have heard of him. I'm sure people in Germany know how good he is, of course. But his next contract, wherever it is, you may know, maybe it's reported somewhere. I don't follow so much of those items, but he's going to go to one of the very, very big boys, and he will be earning a lot of money, and rightly so.
And rightly so. Brad Friedel, I will sign off with a similar question to one which we had a little bit of crack with this time last week. If you found a pound note, a dollar or a euro on the ground, and I said, you can spend this with our sponsors Cobra Bet right now, you're going to have to try and predict either the scoreline in normal time or the game to go to distance and be won in extra time or on penalties, what would be your prediction with a final score, England against France, in the last 8 of the World Cup?
England 2-1 in extra time.
That would be a treat and would make many people watching this very happy. We will be back, come what may, to preview the next stage. But for now, we will leave you with that 2-1 England in extra time. Brad, a pleasure as always. And with the quarterfinals approaching, quite simply, bring it on.
Thank you.